Hi, everyone. Welcome to New Answers Podcast. We are a community of folk who discuss solutions to life's challenges based on our personal experience. I'm Gwendolyn Flynn. We continue our conversation on spirituality as a solution to some of these challenges that we face. And we're taking a different perspective on the Bible. We've been talking recently about the Bible with my guest, Tiffany Lee. Hi, Tiffany.
Hello.
On this episode, we'll be talking about something that may be considered by some as controversial, certainly provocative, and that is the suppression of the feminine energy and how that suppression impacts society. I know before we started recording, Tiffany, you had mentioned that this is one of your favorite subjects. Why is that?
Um, well, because I'm feminine. Because once I discovered that everything I'm learning about feminine energies, feminine gods, and why we don't honor them, and that it was a deliberate suppression by for political reasons and religious reasons, which are always connected, politics and religion, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that alone should trigger you and be like, whoa, wait a minute, Um, and then just from my natural gifts, where being
Mm,
raised Christian, and we talk about, the psychic gifts, the visions, and all that kind of stuff, since I've always had them, and I was always asking, like, first a priest or a pastor, like, what does this mean? Why do I do this? Or how does this relate? Why don't we talk about this? And I was shunned, if not in some arenas, considered demonic, right? And um it was when my kids were born and they're boys, they were born open to their gifts when they're really young. And then you'll find out a lot of kids are. And but I recognized it with them. And I was like, okay, my kids are not demonic. Like I've gone in and out of the spiritual circle and like with
yeah.
religion and stuff like that for as long as I can remember, even as a child. But my kids were raised in the church and they were waking up with visions and predictions and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, there's definitely nothing demonic about bad about this. This is so I already started kind of diving into like, wait, there's something incomplete in the teachings that I've had.
Hmm.
So then I think one of the first things I heard was like Mary Magdalene was not a prostitute, and that's how the church portrays her, right?
Hmm.
And that she might be actually Jesus's equal. His there's so many stories out there being his equal, being his wife, or being, what I mean, and then her even having um scriptures that didn't get put in to the Bible, which
Mm.
are spiritual based.
Yeah.
And so that kind of started the lead into it, right? And then when I really started looking into it, the way society treats women, then you want to know why. If
Yeah.
we are, so when it comes down to it, like if we're equal to God, to the masculine God, there's an equal feminine God. And you know what? Thinking back, I always thought it was weird. I always said, like, Genesis says, let's make man in our image. Let's make man and woman in our image. I always wondered who's our? Who's he talking to? If there's only one God and it's a male God, who's our image and whose image are we made after? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That only counts for the way it's taught, the male image, not the female image. So these are all the things that prompted me into looking into the suppression of or just the feminine images or of the divine, and then
Yeah.
started researching it. Being a female, it makes me mad.
Yeah, I can imagine. I didn't have that kind of curiosity that you did. And and I wouldn't consider this like a favorite subject of mine, but it was something that it has always been intriguing to me in terms of the role of women in religion and how that differs from what I can see with the role of women who are more spiritual. Like the women in the realm of spirituality are seen to me, and this is just based on observation, my own experience as because I'm not a scholar of the Bible necessarily, but it seems to me that in the spiritual sort of circles and world, that women are seen as equal. Like there's not even a conversation about, what position that they need, that they take and whether or not those positions are appropriate to them or should it be a male. But I have also noticed, just in general in society, how women are put down, and those women who seem to have more, are more in touch with their maybe spirituality, but
Their
being
power,
healers. Yeah, their powers, like being healers and using, and this, comes from sort of ancestral and maybe the things that we have available to us, but using like natural ingredients in order to heal yourself. I remember being a sickly young, child, and my mother putting mustard plaster on my chest, and that was like before Vicks Vapor Rub, and using mustard seed. I guess it was mustard seed. I don't know what else you would have used, and making this sort of salve, I guess, and using cheesecloth and putting it on my chest to kind of open up the passages of my lungs so that I can breathe better. But, so those kinds of things. But that kind of behavior and your instinct was kind of frowned upon, or it wasn't celebrated, and I know back in the day at some point for women who had those abilities and would use them, unabashedly, they would be considered witches, you know
that
labeled witches, and then, oh, these are curses that they're using and that kind of thing. So those are the things that I observed, and it seemed to me, and I always had questions about that, like why, why would you do that?
right, right.
So yeah,
Yeah. The exactly the witch part is they were healers, just women are natural
yeah,
healers. And when we embody that again, and I have not used um Western medicine, and I'm not recommending that anyone totally wipes it out. Like maybe once in a while I'll do it. But once I discovered herbs and oils, those are my default. Those are my go-to.
yeah.
And raising my kids, and so I would keep essential oils in my bag, raising my kids, even when they're young. They made a joke out of it. Like anything that anyone's going through, they're like, my mom's got an oil for that. And then my brother, honestly, he's like, "Oh, you're a witch," and I was like, "This is before I even dived into the divine feminine." It was like I discovered this through like doTERRA. Someone introduced it to me.
Mm.
Once I started using it and realized I can cure most things within 24 hours with these oils as opposed to antibiotics that take about a week. So I
uh,
haven't needed to. I first started with a supplemental, like,
uh,
why not try it? Like the first thing we noticed was um, an oil that my son, when he was about 5, he was having really bad asthma attacks. So he had
mm,
his like inhaler, and then he had to go on the machines once in a while. And someone gave us some oils. It was called Breathe, and he would just put it in his hand and go like that. And even at that young age, it was safe, and so
mhm,
I could give it to him, and then he would just do that. And he himself was like, "This works really well." So I was like, "Oh, okay," and then it was like ear infections and other things that when I started using oils for it, they would go away so fast.
yeah,
So here's the power of a woman though. Like our connection to source is supposed to be so primary. in our upper chakras and our third eye and our crown, which we're not taught about in most Western religions. I can't say with other religions. There are other religions that do give, well, actually, it's pretty widespread, actually, culturally, like, except in the spiritual community. I
Yeah.
haven't thought about that until you just said it, and I had to think about it because I've been in the spiritual community for like 3 years now, 3 or 4 years, and I was like, yeah, actually, it is very balanced. You know what I mean? And if not, giving more power to the women because of our gift of being easier for us to connect to source we want
Mm.
to, and having that healing. And like healing is nurturing. So that's why it's a feminine trait, you know?
Yes.
So
Mhm.
that's a gift that God gives us. And when they suppressed the divine goddesses, what they did was teach us in community society to suppress all the feminine gifts that are so powerful,
Yes.
so nurturing, that even as women, we forgot our power. We forgot our power, basically. It,
Right.
intuition gave way to structure. Structure is very masculine, as opposed to intuition is really listening to God source. You know, um, community gave structure to, I mean, gave way to, or working in community in equal masculine, feminine ways gave way to power and um, war, fighting
Mhm.
over land and stuff like that. Like, and possession, that's what it is.
Ah, possession. Okay.
So, we have this society where we want to possess things. We want to possess the animals. We want to possess land. And men want to possess women. That's why they call them my wives.
Ah,
They've taken away the voice. We take on their last name. And what, up until like 55 years ago, we didn't have rights when in America. We couldn't own
right.
a home and stuff like that. And so and there's still a division of America trying to go back to that, right? With MAGA.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's another way of looking at it. Possession. Because I thought I always had this in the back of my mind that, why are men so fearful of us? I thought it was fear. And it may still be to an extent fear because of the fact that we are more in touch with those powers that I believe, I mean, we have some of those things, like you said, intuition, being nurturing and being able to heal and wisdom. And we have those things stronger than the masculine. Although I think they have that ability too, but it's not as strong, right? As ours. And I thought, well, maybe that's why they're fearful of us. And that fear has led to them thinking that they don't have the power. And and then that's what leads to the suppression of women, which seems to be a pattern there in terms of the those who express some fear because of loss of power, that they begin to suppress those that they are fearful of. And part of that suppression is demonizing them. And the way that they demonized women was to say, these abilities that you have are evil, demonic, and that you should no longer be able to practice them. You know what I mean? And they call you witches, and then it just developed this whole sort of folklore, rather than what's true with witches being ugly and having warts and eating children.
Yeah, I
Remember
know.
fairy tales
Fairy
like
tales were awful. Yeah.
horrible, like the Hansel and Gretel getting lost in the woods and being taken in by this woman who was going to boil them in this cauldron and eat them. I mean, it's just a whole thing developed around demonizing women for having their natural ability. to be the nurturers of society. So, so that's where I was coming from with this. And these are the things that bubbled up in my mind as to why it is, the masculine had taken on this role of dominating. It was a domination that they had taken, but it's not out of necessarily fear, but it's about possession, as you were saying, because you can point to that where, the reasons that their wars are happening, right, is possession of land.
Right. Which is so ridiculous.
It's
It's possession of land, and with that need of possession, it's kind of like it's so far from being heart-centered that there's abuse in it. Like everything that man wants to possess, um, they feel like they can own and treat however they want to. So they treat their women, poorly. They treat the land poorly. They treat animals poorly. Um, because they're not heart-centered. So every person though has both masculine and feminine energy. And since we got so far away from the feminine energy that the masculine ends up in its toxic masculine energy. And even us as feminines, we have had to suppress our natural feminine energies as well. And so we're also in toxic masculine energy. We have to work out of that. And that is rising though. That's the beautiful thing. That is rising. I work in sales and I work with a lot of coaches. And the
Mm,
coaches used to be like, you have to have the structure. You got to do 10 calls. You got to do it this way. You got to be A type personality. And
mm,
now they're recognizing the feminine attributes, and the feminine attributes to each person is saying like maybe hard work isn't the way, maybe intuition is the way. And in fact, a lot more coaches are bringing that in too. So there is a rise of the feminine energies right now, you know what I mean, where that
mhm.
is like acknowledging that hard work is not just work hard doesn't work out, because one will burn you out, especially if you're female, you know, because that's not how we're actually made to do that. I mean, on a scale. I mean,
Yeah.
so um, I was thinking of something that you said a minute ago that I wanted to expand on, and I can't remember what it is now, but the possession part. I think about even when I've been going to a horse ranch, right, and learning to train, and um, I think about horses. We forget that horses can exist in the wild. In fact, even here in California, up in Stallion Springs, it's called Stallion Springs because there's still wild horses out there.
Oh, yeah.
But when you go to a ranch and you see the horses that are each in their stable, lately
Mm,
that's been bothering me because I'm like, they're just there. They're just
yeah.
there. And
Yeah.
people just want to possess them.
And they don't need to be confined. Yeah,
Right. Like that's actually quite sad if you think about it.
it
And
is.
then when training them, they're like, you gotta be strong with them. You gotta hit them or they're not gonna listen to you. And I was like, for me, that
No.
process, like they said the same thing about women and they said the same thing about children. That's toxic masculinity
Mm-hmm.
in every little thing being passed down to every little thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
um,
you can see these patterns of behavior across a number of different sort of domains,
mhm.
you know, and it's not good for society overall.
No, it's violent. It's
Yeah,
toxic masculinity is violent. Uh,
right,
so I'm not saying that men or masculine energy is violent. The toxic masculine is. That's the people,
right,
that's the energy that's disconnected from the heart, from the feminine side. We,
right.
when we're all balanced, then we won't have that need for possession. And that alone just kind of what takes care of wars and violence. Like possession
Absolutely it
is
does.
a strong, I didn't even think about it till we went on the show too. Like possession is a strong desire. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But the masculine energy is needed in the world.
Yeah,
It's not like we're saying we want to do away with it. Like you said just now, that it's not the masculine that we want to do away, it's the toxic masculine. But the masculine energy is necessary for balance, right, in society.
yeah.
They do bring strength, right?
Hmm.
And there are other attributes that are essential.
Right. It's the structure, and that's good. I went to a retreat, a
Hmm.
spiritual retreat last year. It was a dance retreat, and they taught dance by expressing the masculine and feminine energy and not by steps. So the masculine's job was to be the frame, and they have to be a strong frame, and that's what men are. Their strength, right? That's their strength and their protection. And this was so cool. So they taught dance, they taught the men how to create a box, create the frame for the women to be in. Now they're there for strength and support and leading. Like, so when you're doing the dance step, they're leading you around the dance floor with their strength and support. And the women's job was to be expressive within the frame.
Mm,
And the masculine, I have to go back to this tree. It was so good. The masculine had to be grounded in his strength and know what his job was, because if he wasn't grounded in his frame and strength, then when the woman's trying to express herself, that's when she's doing the turns or whatever, it could be dangerous. She could fall, for one. You know what I mean? So, and or she would have to take on some of the strength of the man, and she wouldn't be able to express as well. Now,
mm,
if the masculine is toxic and being controlling, not leading and controlling is two different things. If the masculine is being controlling and saying and trying to control her expression, that doesn't work out either. So
mm.
I thought that was, just thinking about it, is such a great metaphor for society, right?
Yes, that is a great metaphor. I never, I mean, for that instructor to use that is, pretty insightful because I never would have thought of it in that way and expressing it in that way. And that's a way to, yeah, to illustrate, the role of the masculine and the feminine in the
Right.
world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good illustration of that. Um, the so there obviously a place for both of us. It's not about one dominating the other. It's
Exactly.
about creating balance, right?
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
it's
So that all energies can express their actual purpose without harming one another
one
and
another.
earth. Yeah. And
Yeah,
man.
yes, exactly. And earth, and beings. Like you were talking about the horses, and I love horses too. And I don't believe, I mean, I was drawn to first it was a book and then it became a film, The Horse Whisperer,
Yeah.
and how they train horses, not using punishment and, beating them into submission, but it was
Right.
it was it was dealing with them, uh, being to being, like heart to
Right.
heart, kind of, and working in harmony, to do whatever it is that the horse and the rider was to do.
Right.
And in that same way, that's what we should be aspiring to as humans on this earth, to work together, the masculine and the feminine in harmony, right?
Right. Exactly.
And
Um,
oh, you were going to say something? Because I was going to say, I think in the realm of spirituality, I think that's what is promoted, or that's what is, I mean, it's not even promoted, it's just the way it is, and in spirituality, we think about there being one mind, one source, one being, right?
yeah.
Um, and when we detach ourselves, separate ourselves from that being, and our ego gets in the way, that's when all of this toxicity comes up, masculine and feminine. But if we are staying connected to the one source, this one mind, and embracing the different attributes that we both bring, the feminine and the masculine, because they're needed. That's what creates balance in society, right?
Right. What I wanted to say for anyone that wants to look further into this, it goes back as far as like Judaism. We,
Mm,
we all know God's name is Yahweh, but there was also the the Israelites also had a feminine god called Asherah.
ah,
And at some point, when they started suppressing the feminine god, a lot of the prophets did that. They went around and they started demonizing the gods, and they started taking down, the Asherah's temples and other female gods in other countries. Um, and they have found proof. They found basically recently a lot of those statues and stuff that have been put away and hidden. So
mm.
it's not, so there's evidence to it, put it that way, and it's something that you can research. And then even in the Bible, um, I was watching the show and they're talking about Solomon, who's supposed to be the wisest man, the wisest king ever. Well, wisdom in the Bible through Proverbs is feminine. They called her wisdom, and that's a feminine attribute, right?
Hmm.
And the way they taught Solomon, instead of it being that Solomon got wisdom's, attributes, and he takes claim of it, he takes possession of it as if it was all him. But when we get wisdom, when we tap in, when we download, in prayer and meditation, that energy, that wisdom that's coming is an attribute of Ashra, of the female god, Ashra or Sophia, she's called. Now, of course, we know, um, and in most religions, that source, the God source, is one energy, one being, but it's
Yes,
balanced. The point is, it's balanced. It's not masculine. It's balanced, feminine
yes.
and masculine. So when they said we are going to make man in our image, it was our image. It's two images. It's masculine and feminine. It's not, man with some changes in her. I don't know how they explain that. They don't explain it, and people don't think, and that is also a toxic masculine trait, to just believe, to follow a leader, as opposed to being in tune to what really feels right and what you hear directly from God source.
Directly from God. That's me. I talk about the intermediaries all the time. And I'm seeing the Bible as, I know it's the Bible, but it's an interpretation, someone's interpretation of things. And if we can become more connected to the source directly, and let ourselves feel that intuition. I mean, because that is the source talking to you, whispering to you, connecting with you. If you get that and not be influenced by these intermediaries, then I think we'd be better off. I I really do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And
is it
Jesus says that in the Bible. Even God actually says it in the Bible. Um,
ah,
yes, people demonize the Bible a lot. Yes, it's been edited for a purpose,
mm-hmm,
but you can't completely erase God's words. And
mm-hmm,
but because in this patriarchal world where we people just want to follow leaders, where they've lost their own power to know they can go directly to God, they
yeah,
don't really for themselves read the Bible to understand it. In the
right. They rely on somebody to interpret it for them,
Yeah,
right?
and they can interpret it however they want to, and they just believe. And that's something that's never, it's never sat with me well,
Me
I've
either.
always questioned, like, people just question stuff. We wouldn't have this president if people would question stuff. If
exactly.
people would tune in and tap into God correctly, if they would use their heart center, we would not be in the situation we're in now, you know.
Right. I think
But
so. You're absolutely right. That's why we're doing this show.
why we're doing the
Right.
show, we're like, wake up, people.
So to help people feel that you can go back to, your ability to connect with the source on your own without having someone um, guide you through this or interpret anything for you, that you have that direct connection. You have that ability to do that. And you may have for a long time suppressed things. I think earlier on we were talking about ways in which there's evidence of our spirituality, a connection with the deja vu and the intuition and the out of body experiences and the thinking about somebody one day and then the next day they show up or they call you or something. I mean, all of that to me is evidence of our kind of spiritual abilities. And if we can just take, not suppress that, but allow that uh, to embrace those attributes and make the connection to the source directly, I think we would be a lot better off. I think we began to talk about ways in which society is reclaiming the divine, right? Feminine. Um, and I think it probably starts with, like we were saying, honoring those attributes that we have and not suppressing them, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, and looking to the possibility of a feminine leadership, whether it's in a woman's body or it's in a man's body, because we all have the ability, the capability for the masculine and the feminine, and if we can get to a point where not one or the other, that there's balance and not one or the other is dominant, then we can look at that for leadership, right?
Yes. We have to decriminalize the feminine energies. And even
Yeah.
that is also sexuality, you know what I mean? And our bodies. Um, and that is so before we can really embrace the feminine, women need to embrace their feminine. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Can't let
Mhm.
men tell us how we're allowed to express ourselves in our
There we go.
makeup and how we love on ourselves. Like that, we have to look at ourselves not as sexual beings for the objection and ownership of a man.
Yeah.
We, yeah, need to self own ourselves. This is our gift. It's our gift. It's even in the Bible, the beauty of a woman is so appreciated. So we
Mm.
have to appreciate the beauty that God gives us and express it, feel comfortable expressing it. You know, there is this Soviet Union ex female spy that she has a YouTube channel
Oh.
and she teaches divine feminine stuff. And she said when she was recruited at a young age, like a teenager. And the first thing they teach you is to look in the mirror and look at the things about yourself that you love and pay attention to it for 15 minutes.
Mm.
Not the things you don't like, which is kind of like what we do here. Like, we're taught to look at what we don't like, what's not good enough. And we have entire industries based on that, you know,
That's true.
right? So
Yes.
what she says is it's the confidence in women that makes them magnetic. So in their training, I think it's so amazing. They have to stare at themselves in the mirror and look at all the things, all their best, what they feel is their best attributes and
Hmm.
love it. Like fall in love yourself by looking at your best attributes,
Hmm. Hmm.
your whole body touching it. And then um, I was just like, that is beautiful because and then what happens when I start practicing it, what happens is once you fall in love with say, I love my eyes, too bad I'm wearing glasses all the times, but like I've always thought like my eyes was my favorite attribute. So you think on that, you think about it, you think about your eyes all day. tell yourself you're beautiful because you have your eyes,
Yeah.
but eventually it grows. You start loving more about you, you know,
Yes.
and that's what the women have to do first. We have to love ourselves first
Mm-hmm.
because we can't we attract who we are, right? So we're going to attract the people that will love us the way we love ourselves. And we
That's
will
true.
not put up with the crap that we've put up with for centuries after being told why we're witches or
Right.
sexual objects and why we're not perfect, based on the male's definition of perfection, which
Right.
for the longest time was a very skinny person with no curves, no exotic features. It was, very like, I don't want to say it, but in the Western world, it was a skinny white woman.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that has already opened up, but um, to being able to appreciate, exoticism and everything. But we don't need men to appreciate us. We need to appreciate ourselves
Yes. Yes.
and be like, this is why I'm beautiful. Because one, God made us this way. God doesn't make mistakes, right? So
Exactly.
God's perfect. And so therefore we are perfect whole beings and we are
In the
not
way that we
subject,
are. Yes.
yes, in the way that we are. Love
Mm-hmm.
on that first. And that's the first step to reclaiming your own personal divine feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And also, oh, okay, see, I'm getting mad about something because I'm remembering something that used to be said all the time where they're like, um, they don't appreciate a woman's thoughts. Women should be
Oh,
seen but not heard and say the
seen
same.
but not heard. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But here we are, we're wisdom, and the Bible calls us wisdom, right? So therefore, women need to also understand like we are wisdom. We
Yeah.
are the nurturers. Like no one can be born without a woman. Nothing can be created. We're the creators, we're the nurturers. Nothing can be created without women. So therefore, of course, we're wisdom. We instinctually will know how to what our kids need most of the time before we even talk to a doctor or anyone else. We just know, you know, remembering your instincts, focusing on your instincts, going by the instincts before anything else as a woman. That's
Before
what
anything else, because they're never wrong. And
they're
I
never
I don't like to speak in absolutes, but instincts are never wrong because it's God whispering to you and talking to you.
right.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's my soapbox on the divine feminine. There's lots of ways to start reclaiming your own power. There's lots of research you can do if you want to follow up on it, like follow up on all the goddesses, sorry, that they've suppressed. See, we say God over goddess. It doesn't sound right to say goddess.
I know, I
So
know. We're
yeah,
so programmed that way. Yeah.
so programmed. Yeah.
Mhm.
At our center, a lot of the practitioners, when we pray, will say they pray to Mother, Father, God.
Yeah.
And I do like that. And I'm
I,
trying to like get that more in me, but even more so, I'm praying to Mother God,
yeah.
or I go to Mary as opposed to Jesus, or, and that's just me retraining myself because I
Yes.
want to embody the beauty. And that's the other thing about the feminine is embodying beauty. I pick roses and put them in my room all the time now.
Hmm.
It's beautiful energy and appreciating that and appreciating the earth, you know, uh,
Right.
appreciating a tree. Trees have so much positive energy
Oh,
that, you know, that being around a tree and being barefoot in the grass is actually healing on the body. And that's some of what was taken away. That knowledge was taken away when suppressing the feminine energy because the feminine energy is nurture. It's taking care of the earth. It's it's our taking care of our bodies. And to this day, men still die sooner than women. That's still a given, you know. But um getting back to earth, if you go into the garden or onto the grass and stand barefoot, and now this is proven scientifically, and
mhm.
in the spiritual community they call it grounding, right?
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so what they found scientifically, like is that if you have swelling in your body and you go stand or sit on the grass, on the dirt, on the
Mhm.
earth for 20 minutes, it will rebalance your body. It will take away the swelling.
That's amazing. I never
It
heard
is,
that before you brought it up
yeah.
in this conversation, but that's great to know.
You
That's
can Google that on YouTube because now it's a lot. And they've even created, because this is the masculine world, they've
mhm.
created ways to duplicate that effect. And you can look up grounding pads on Amazon. And it's something you plug into the grounding unit and it sends out certain electrical activity.
Mhm.
And I did get it for my mom and she's dealing with a lot of swelling. So she sleeps on it. And so she wakes up not needing to take pain pills because the swelling's not there. Whereas
Mhm.
I personally will go out when I have swelling, go out and sit on the grass. I have no problem doing that and let the swelling go. So a scientist, what he did was he he was, I think, working on this car and decided, I wonder what when you have to ground from the car, you have to put it something, the one you have to ground it
Yeah,
to the ground or on something. It triggered him into thinking about like how does I wonder how I don't know how he triggered that. It was that
yeah,
definitive, it was that wisdom coming through him, like, let's try this with the human body. And then he tested it and he was like, this works.
it worked.
It worked.
Yes.
He's like just touching the ground with no shoes on. It's not with shoes. You have to be barefoot.
I
Plastic blocks that energy from coming. So the energy from the earth mixes with the energy in your body and it will balance out basically your blood cells and takes away the excessive swelling. And
Mhm. Yeah. So there's obviously all kinds of reasons for environmental stewardship, but this is one good reason. I mean, it's healing. And I remember from, I don't know, maybe it was high school science about plants, green plants, trees give off carbon dioxide or give off oxygen, and we
right,
give off carbon dioxide. So there's that balance there, right? Because they use the carbon dioxide to, produce their leaves and their whatever. And we need the oxygen, obviously, for us. And it provides shade to us. The trees do. But this is the first time I'd heard about the healing powers of standing barefoot in grass in terms of your body. I guess dealing with inflammation when you're swollen around.
yeah,
But so there's several different reasons why environmental stewardship is should be embraced by all of us as we're trying to reclaim our divine feminine, right?
right. And
And
a good
mhm.
source for that would be to look into Native American tradition
Ah, yeah,
because they do appreciate that.
they
And my
do.
grandfather, who was Native American, when I was growing up and I was really sickly,
Mhm.
we had a nanny and she always wanted to just like put me in bed, give me medicine. And my grandfather would fight her and be like, no, we're laying her in the sand. I have so many, not the sand, the grass. I have so
Right.
many baby pictures of me just laying in the grass because I don't know why I was a sickly baby. But I'm like just laying in the grass. But
Yes,
if you
the
do it,
indigenous populations know this.
they do know this
They
exactly.
know this, and they practice it even today, some of them.
They do.
Like you said,
They
your grandfather.
100% do. Yeah,
Yeah.
he believed in sitting. He first thing in the morning, he went out, he had a chair, he sat in the his chair in his garden. He gardened, we grew all our food, and
Mhm.
I loved being in the garden with him. And he made sure that we were out front playing in the sun because the sun has so many vitamins. Do you know
Mhm.
that the United States has a vitamin D deficiency because they've demonized the sun?
The sun, yes.
That's so wild. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's like so now, and vitamin D is very hard to get through vitamins as opposed to the sun. And there's plenty of countries where they know they put their baby out and or they know like be out in the sun for 15 minutes, like
Yeah.
get the energy. And there's a certain time of the day, it literally activates your body. It like
Mhm.
activates your immune system, it activates your metabolism. And then in the evening, you shut it down. You go out under the moon. And then
Yeah.
it tells your body it's bedtime.
Mhm.
This wisdom, this knowledge is what what, you know, the powers that be or whatever called wicked and, witch, what I mean? Witches.
Witches, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
these witches and their covens coming up with all of these, you know,
Sun worshiping and moon worshiping.
and
It's
moon
how about
worshiping.
we're all connected. God made us that way and we need it all. And
Yeah,
we are healthiest if we follow that.
absolutely. And how interconnected we
Everything.
are. I mean, not only human beings, but the animal world. Like we were talking about the horses and earlier, and then with the physical environment, with trees and grass. I mean, we all there are properties that we all have or attributes that we all have that support each other, right?
Hmm.
And that's what regeneration is in terms of agriculture anyway. But I see it as looking at the whole ecosystem and how we are connected to each other and support each other and in ways in which we just kind of maybe take for granted, or if we know about it at all. But we need to be more aware of that. And these are ways in which we can reclaim, right? That divine feminine. The other thing is like integrating that masculine and feminine energy. It's not like I hope people aren't getting that we're trying to uh, take away,
Bash the
demonize,
masculine, and we're not.
we're not at
Not.
all. We're
We're not.
not at all. We're just trying to raise up,
Raise the feminine.
the
Exactly.
feminine up and
The
talk.
lost wisdom, the suppressed wisdom, and it's better for everyone's life. Yeah.
Right. To have that balance, that harmony. That's what is going to be good for society overall. And then reflecting this, not only, so we embody these practices as persons, individuals, and then radiate that out into the world, into the community in the various forms that are available to us. Because I talk about we talked earlier about how when women were the women being demonized and called witches and burned at the stake, and how, but it showed up in our literature, fairy tales for kids, you know, and how scary that must be. I remember working in a daycare center and refusing to read the Grimm story tales. Grimm,
Hmm.
the Grimm's brothers. What a name, right?
Right.
Because it was so scary. It's like, why
So
would you
scary.
scare the kids? About Hansel and Gretel and the witch in the woods, and well, there were other stories too, and
Well, Snow White, Cinderella, all of
all
those
of them
stories, women
have.
are depicted as either a witch or if they're good, they die early.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm saying this to say that that has to, once we adopt that this kind of these kind of practices ourselves as individuals, that we radiate that out into community, including all of our cultural institutions, our literature, our art, our media, that it has to show up there too, to really create that sense of balance and harmony in
Right.
the world.
Well, we brought this up, and it's funny that you said Van Gogh because he's one of my favorite artists. In fact, my pictures back here are both replications of Van Gogh.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
but let's see,
Impressionists. Yes.
irises and the plum tree. So,
Okay.
with suppressing the divine, uh, the feminine energies, that's like the artistic energies, right? So, and I was saying this, we don't have the same amount of artists that come like they did Renaissance times and stuff like that a long time ago because I think it's really considered the dark ages when once they
Mhm.
really suppressed and because it was a process. As soon as farming started is when the process started of suppressing the feminine. But it really got to a point of the feminine energies fully unappreciated, unacknowledged, and just a second class nature, if even that.
Yeah.
And it shows in the arts because, yes, we have artists and stuff like that, but it's not considered It's not valued the way it should be valued. Van Gogh created these paintings with God. Everything with art is
Oh,
co-creation with God, with Mother Father.
yes,
You know what I mean? It is
yes.
what it is. And we
You,
would not have beauty without God. You know, the world is so full of beauty, color, and all that kind of stuff. And you really think about it, if you're just in your masculine energy, that would not be created. And it's so not appreciated that it has stifled that element to the world, that
yes.
gift of the feminine to the world.
Yes. I mean, and that's a shame. I mean, that it would be stifled that way. So I hope this conversation helps people to embrace the attributes that we have and be able to create this harmony that we need, and that it shows up in a number of different ways, and especially in our culture, in our arts. I'm talking about the visual arts, the performing arts. I mean, just, you know, all across the societal domains, whatever they are,
Hmm.
so that we have a much and it's about having, as I keep saying, it's harmony, it's balance, and that's what we're looking for in society, and not have this imbalance, which it isn't good for anybody, you know. It isn't good for anybody. What a great conversation. Are there any final thoughts that you want to leave with anyone, with the audience that are listening to this?
Um, yeah, this just popped in my head. I feel like one way that we can help bring up the divine feminine energy into the world is to focus again on the arts. We have so much war going on, and that becomes our focus. And what we focus on expands. So let's change that dynamic and purposefully, intentionally focus on art. And that might be just going to a ballet, going to a play, um, and within yourself, finding your artistic balance. What gift are you in yourself suppressing unconsciously that you don't know that you have? Like mine turned out to be singing, as one of them. I make jewelry too. I'm not a natural painter, but I do poetry, journaling. All these things are ways of allowing the feminine energy to express itself in your life. And everyone should start their day off with that, because so far we're still in this world where we have to jump into our masculinity to get through the day, but we can start balancing it ourselves. And as a collective, we can change things by saying this is what we want. We don't want war anymore. We don't want to see all that what's happening. We don't want to spiritual bypass it and pretend like it's not. You know what I mean? But what I love that Portland's doing, they're I don't know if you've seen these things, but they are like dressing up in costumes and they're singing and they're protesting, you know what I mean? And
Oh,
they're being so creative. That is that is so feminine. So you see the battle on a macrocosm, kind of macrocosm right there in Portland, because it's a very artistic, it's a very free, like city, you know what I mean? And
right.
very spiritual. So they're using their feminine energy to go against the masculine, where you have ICE and you have the military and they're standing there, and then
Mhm.
have the protesters. And one day they were in costumes and one day they're just singing, and it's actually beautiful. It's actually to see like the creativity, the ways that people are protesting the controlling masculine system that's in place right now.
I didn't realize that that was going on in Portland. I mean, I know I had seen a couple of sort of sarcastic or the political satire made of what was going on in
Yeah,
Portland, how people were standing in front of places where it was supposed to be raging with fire and and riot,
right.
and
Yeah,
and there was no one there. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
I'm standing in front of this place where we're supposed to be, and I don't see anybody. So I saw that, but I didn't know that they were doing, these, having this activism, in terms of um, counterbalancing, you
The
know,
one I saw today, they
what we,
did a naked protest. So they're
oh,
either bottomless or topless. So when they were showing it, they kind of like,
oh my goodness. That is creative.
that is so creative.
I love that. So yeah, so that should inspire all of us. Like, yeah, that's a good way to conclude this conversation is we starting with ourselves to um, not suppress the instincts that we have and the creativity that we have coming through us naturally. That's one thing. And then we can maybe join in with other folks who
Right.
are in the same way so that we can create this masculine, feminine blending and balance and counteract all the other toxic stuff that's going on out there.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's how we start. And then we can just build off of that. And before you
Some
know
of the beauty.
yeah, it's happening in Portland and pretty soon it'll be happening in other cities around the country and then maybe even around the globe.
Yeah.
That would be a
It
beautiful thing.
is happening around the globe, by the way. And that's what they're not showing in the news. But this is a whole other conversation. Maybe we'll
Yeah,
have.
yeah, that's right. So stay tuned. Thank you for this conversation, Tiffany. And we would love to hear from you. Get your reaction to what you heard us talk about. Place those comments in the space below this video. And don't forget to click on subscribe so that you won't miss any future episodes like the one that we're talking about upcoming. And on behalf of Tiffany Lee, I'm Gwendolyn Flynn. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.